Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about the entire crypto market. So before we fully jump on in, I do just want to ask guys to please leave a like on this video. It does help the channel grow immensely, and of course, I always do greatly appreciate that. On the 24-hour span, as you guys do see, we are down about roughly almost 6% on the overall crypto market cap. Bitcoin's down about 5%. We are seeing a nice pullback throughout the entire market. It looks pretty rough. It looks very dismal. But I want you guys to understand that, when we are nearing the bottoming point for any sort of correction, it is always very, very bad. It's the worst point in time in terms of markets. And that's where we do see a ton of capitulation, a lot of shakeouts happening. And I would say when we take a look currently at this overall structure of this market, I'm not too concerned, and we're going to be talking about where I do get concerned on Bitcoin here shortly. But I want you guys to understand everything that is going on in this market and kind of comparing and contrasting to what's happening around other, financial indicators. So let's kind of move on and let's talk about that. So shout out to Game of Trades here. We do see here yields are reversing. The number one factor that has pushed equities down is beginning to subsist. Things look bad here, but things always look bad at bottoms. And I would say that near bottoms, it's the worst time in the markets. It's where, you need that capitulation to be at its highest point. We look at Bitcoin right now, okay, and we are breaking that 236 level. And we're eyeing that bottoming stage foundation that we built, within that February-March timeframe. I tweeted out on Twitter saying, we'd most likely see 50K before we even break down below 37K. And I'm still with that. We might get a little bit of a wick, similar to what we did see back here on the February 21st weekly candle, where we came down to test roughly about like 34.4K. I don't believe that we go that low. If anything, we'll most likely see about like 36.2K, which is the major support zone from these weekly candles, these almost 3 weekly candles actually in a row. Or we even test, going back as far as like the July time frame low, which was like 35.4K. Which I'm not the only one that is actually kind of seeing these patterns playing out on Bitcoin. We actually did see a chart from Credible Crypto. Shout out to him. He's saying, looking for a repeat of what we saw in green here in orange. That is a sweep of unswept lows into demand and then a reversal. We have a higher time frame bullish divergence I mentioned previously that would get invalidated on a higher time frame close below 36K. So I don't want to see us down there for long. Now, tomorrow is critical for us because I would say when we look at indices, that's the critical turning point for this market. We want to see Bitcoin have a lot more strength here. We actually need a strong flip of 44K for us to actually be back into a bullish pattern. I'm not saying that the chart doesn't look bullish still in terms of the structure that we are still holding. I think that the integrity of the Bitcoin price chart still looks strong fundamentally when you look at, the previous patterns that we have printed on this chart, and we still are in a higher low pattern. I'm just kind of concerned if we don't flip that point by the end of this month, because you guys are probably all aware that May is always a rough time for crypto. Of course, it doesn't always have to be. I mean, you look back at like the 2020 time frame, we already had that massive correction, so the markets were ripe for, of course, upside moves. So when we look at things right now, I'm really kind of focusing on us flipping back into a bullish, point. We are still watching things closely here, but we will most likely range here a little bit, and it is going to hurt our altcoins more so as we kind of do range downward here. But I do believe that we are nearing our bottoming point, or our local bottom, if you will. And when we kind of look at, even like things like the dollar, the total two and stuff like that, we are still seeing, a lot of strong points leading to a nice, run within, the crypto market. Now, when we look at things around Bitcoin, so we do see here, so what makes you think we, would be at a point of distribution for Bitcoin right now? These simple metrics tell me we're at accumulation for months ahead. You need a thing you maybe don't have, which is patience. Shout out to Phoenix Ashes here for this. But we do see this chart. Now, this chart is those on-chain metrics. These are things that we should be watching. A lot of people think, that these don't matter at all. But technically, these are some of the most important factors to kind of continue to watch for. And this is the balance on exchanges from Bitcoin. Now, when we take a look at this, I want you guys to understand that, where we currently are now compared to even the past, we should technically be seeing a massive supply shock, aka that, major short squeeze. And when we look at that Bitcoin short squeeze from like around the March 2020 timeframe all the way to our recent high in November, we could kind of see a lot of those patterns playing out on this chart. Meaning, we see this topping point at around the March of 2020 timeframe, leading to that massive supply shock, which led to a major increase in price all the way to around May of 2021. Now, in this chart, you guys do see the bottoming stage was around that May of 2021 timeframe, and then we did see that correction, which meant, guess what? Balance on exchanges started to move to a higher point. But now we are seeing balance on exchanges at a near all-time low in terms of historical, patterns, which should be leading to a major increase in price. But we are not seeing that. In fact, we are actually seeing the opposite, which tells me this is just massive capitulation around weak hand selling. And when we look at the Bitcoin price chart currently, like I said, this chart is still looking pretty good, especially when you look at the overall macro view and zoom out, especially going back to that March of 2020 timeframe. I've shared with you guys the fib extensions even from the, March timeframe going back here, which this is also the point where everyone was kind of saying, should we be watching 28.8K again for a retest? I don't believe so. In fact, when we look at, the current price chart, I'm kind of going off those fib extensions still from the summertime, and it looks like we are still ranging at around that support zone. Of course, yes, are we breaking down below it? Yes, which tells me we will most likely test a demand zone, which will most likely be this, roughly 37K to possibly even 35.5K from, Cred's chart, which is, again, that July timeframe demand zone. So I'm watching those points closely. I'm still going off of these fib extensions instead of the March of 2020 timeframe. I don't believe that we see 20Ks anytime soon before we do see, some higher price targets. But as we do kind of range on here, I am watching a lot of factors. Now, tomorrow is critical because we are waiting to see a nice impulse back on the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, and the S&P 500. These three have been extremely bearish. We've seen them close out on Friday. On Friday, the Dow Jones closed at around roughly almost negative 1,000, and now we just seen a close at around negative 809, and you do see them in a strong sell. I'm waiting to see if these have that strong bounce back. I'm actually just going to open the Dow Jones, chart here, just to kind of show you where we currently are on this. I'm not saying that this looks very good. I'm just saying that when we look at things, on the macro view here, so let me actually get rid of that. So let's actually kind of look at this and address a few things. So I'm going off of those fib extensions from the recent low. It looks pretty rough, right? Now, similar to the Bitcoin price chart, I have gone off of the March of 2020 lows before in terms of the Dow Jones, which, by the way, similar to, other price charts, this actually looks pretty strong. It looks like we will most likely test that 786 level at about 33K, which will bring, again, Bitcoin down a little bit. It will also bring our altcoins down some as well, but we are actually near that point, as you guys do see. So if the Dow Jones actually slightly wicked below this, because we usually do see slight wicks below these support zones on the Dow Jones, this would be roughly about a 0.82% drop in price, or negative 271 points, or roughly, and now this would be massive capitulation, we would possibly see a negative 930 points down. Now, if we don't see a flip, or if we don't see an impulse back up from the 786 level, then it's time to kind of get concerned, because then we will most likely test the 702. But I have been saying the Dow Jones, in terms of the overall macro support zones, we still look fairly strong. I'm still looking for a nice impulse here. I still believe that all-time highs are in sight for the Dow Jones, which will ultimately lead to all-time highs for also crypto as well. Now, talking about some altcoins, we've talked about XRP, we've talked about XLM and stuff like that. We're actually going to be addressing those, during the later time of this video, I do just really want to quickly address the dollar first. So the dollar is at this very critical point. Okay? And that is, we are still rallying very strong on the dollar, but it looks like we are nearing that topping point. And I have been addressing this topping point for a while. Could we go to 104? Yes. Could we go to 105? Yes. But around that point is where I say prepare, because it looks like the dollar is still getting to that point where we will see that, all-time low from the past few years, going back to 2018. I see this low being, I shouldn't say all-time low, but we should be seeing this low being tested because, lower lows have been put in place before. But I'm just saying, like, we will most likely see this multi-year low tested, which will be at around that 88 level. When we look at the dollar and we look at the structure that is being printed on the chart, though, we actually see a very similar overall pattern playing out here. Again, could we see a nice rally point above the points that we are kind of headed to now? Yes. We kind of see, and I've actually looked at this from the 2015 to the 2018 timeframe. If we go off of the candles here, this actually increased roughly about 3.63%. If we see that 3.63% from our current high going back to March of 2020, we would actually be seeing roughly 106.75, which is still around my 104 to 105 level. This will actually kill confidence within a lot of these risk-on markets, which is actually what we technically want. We want to see a lot of panic, especially around markets currently, because guess what? That's the best time to buy. That's also the best time to be holding. But I have been watching the dollar for that topping point to hit that low down there, which is the multi-year low. And I do believe that we are nearing that topping point. Now, if we don't reject off of the March of 2020 highs, like I said, prepare for 104 to possibly 106. Now, with this in mind, we are watching altcoins as well. So in terms of the total too, the issue with altcoins currently is that I'm going off of, again, the summer lows, as you guys do see. It looks like we could possibly be testing that low point going back as far as roughly February. Now, again, if I go off of the roughly March of 2020 lows, you see that point being extremely lower, which is telling me, guess what? It's not always going to hit that bottom support zone, because technically we should have actually dipped much lower on the recent lows. But I would actually say that we are going to most likely test, if we do break down still from here, we will either test around $973.825 billion, or we could come down a little bit lower to about $945.3 billion. It still is the idea that altcoins will take a little bit, more of a hit. But that is the point where you are going to be looking to enter in, because that's going to be around the point where altcoins have bottomed out. And I've actually addressed this on the XRP price chart as well from yesterday. So I had people in the live stream saying, hey, where do you foresee XRP actually dipping down to if we do, go lower here? Well, I told you guys yesterday, it will most likely test, and let me go to the daily candle so that you guys can see this. I said yesterday we could either test down to as low as roughly 59 or almost 60 cents to roughly around this point of like 62 cents. And it looks like we are most likely going to get those levels for us in order to buy at those nice lows. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have been also saying, hey, what about XLM? XLM is also in a very similar point as well. We kind of look at this, and it will most likely come down and test those support zones at roughly almost 17 cents to even the lowest point here at about 16 cents. And I will definitely be a buyer at that point. Also, Cspr, for those Cspr holders out there, it looks like we are going to be, roughly ranging around the same point that we have been kind of watching for a while here, which is most likely around this point here at almost 7 cents to either these bottom wicks down here to roughly almost 6.5 cents. So watch those levels closely. For QNT, also very similar charts, by the way. They all look fairly bearish, but I have been watching, to see if this did break down below my 105 level, which we did. Yesterday, we slightly wicked down below. You guys do see this actually testing a current wick from February, but ultimately our level that we are watching for is around 98 to roughly 92. So that's the levels that I'm watching for in order to buy. If we do come down and test the bottom of this, overall fib extension, that's going to be a significant buy point as well, and I will definitely be a buyer for QNT at around that range. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you guys want more free content, you guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. As always, up to you all. Have a beautiful day or beautiful night, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.